Alright gamers, no long intro and no advertising. I'm Shield Maiden. Let's talk about Crota's End and how to get through it. First up, the Hellmouth. What you're going to want to do is pick up the chalice and head down to the plate. You want to hold it until the bar fills completely and you become engulfed with light. You have about 10 seconds for a fire team member to take that off of you, and then you're going to be able to dunk on the plate. You'll want to do that to build the bridge faster. Basically, just rinse and repeat with different members of your fire team until the bridge is built, and voila, you're done. The Abyss. Couple things to look out for here. Thrall, holes in the ground, and swinging lanterns that are not lit, because that would just be too helpful. It's very dark down here. Make sure your team communicates a lot, and make sure people know what they are doing. You're going to want to pick up the Chalice of Light and go to the very first lantern. Wait for the chalice to charge and have someone take it when you're engulfed with light. When they take it, that will make you enlightened. The person who takes it should deposit it in the preservation node beside the lantern. They're going to receive a timer called Drained of Light, which means they can't pick up again for around 35 seconds. Whoever is enlightened should activate the lantern to remove the weight of darkness. This will refresh the Engulfed with Darkness counter, which is the encounter wipe timer. A new player has to take the Chalice of Light from the preservation node. You just want to keep moving forward, repeating the pattern over and over. Here's a solid tip: you only need to preserve the chalice if the next lantern is not lit. If it is, just keep on keeping on. The bridge. The bridge starts forming once 3 people are standing on plates. Start getting people the Enlighten buff to dunk on the plate to make the bridge build faster. Believe me, it takes forever. More Enlighten buffs help speed up construction. However, the bridge will only keep forming if someone's standing on the middle plate. Players can only cross the bridge if they're holding a sword or are holding the Chalice of Light. A sword can only be picked up if you have the Enlighten buff. What worked for my team was this strat. We swapped the chalice around until 5 people had the Enlighten buff. Then the last person to pick up the chalice and the first person to pick up a sword ran across the bridge at the same time. By the way, make sure your chalice runner is quick, because as soon as they get to the other side, they need to preserve the chalice at the bottom of the stairs. The person with the sword defeats the gatekeeper and then preserves the sword. Every time someone comes over to the far side with a sword, they'll need to defeat a gatekeeper. You can't miss them, it's a big blue knight. Once you're on the other side, your job is to clear enemies. When 3 players have crossed to the far side, you can then form the bridge via the far side plates and the totems. Keep doing that until everybody with the Enlighten buff grabs a sword and is able to cross the bridge. After all the players have made it across, you just want to slay out and defeat enemies until the wizards and ogres spawn. Once they spawn, slay out on them too. Nothing should be alive. With everything dead, the gatekeepers will spawn. Rotate the chalice again until a couple people get the Enlightened buff to pick up the swords to defeat the gatekeepers. Once all of the statues going up the stairs are lit, you can deposit the chalice, and that will end the encounter. Next up is the Thrallway. This is just a mini section where you fight up a literal hill while defeating Thrall and destroying Shriekers. Again, you're going to want to be enlightened because that's the only thing that's going to get you through the green barrier. What worked for us was getting 2 people enlightened, having 1 person move through the first barrier, defeating the Shrieker, allowing the fire team to move forward, and then having that second person immediately zoom through to the next barrier, defeating that Shrieker, and then whoever has the chalice deposits into the preservation node right before the room. Alright, next up is Irute. What's going to happen is you're going to press forward through this hallway. You're going to slay out, kill all the knights. You want to kill ads as quickly as you can. This entire damage phase gives you about 3 minutes to do everything you need to do. Slaying out is crucial. Go up the stairs that wrap back around over top of where you just came from. You're going to go into the hallways on the left and right side, slay out on all the ads, kill the Shriekers. Killing the Shriekers lets you pass through the barrier to grab the buff. What you want to do is get people enlightened, because that's the only way to pass through the barriers to kill the wizards. Killing wizards brings down Irute's shield, allowing you to damage her. In terms of finding the wizards, what worked for my team was numbering the rooms that they could possibly be in 1 through 7. As shown, towers on the left are 1 and 2, towers on the right are 3 and 4. The area above where you're killing all of the ads, I basically call it the second story. That's where 5, 6, and 7 are. What also worked for my team is once somebody becomes enlightened, they are then a scout and can go look to see where the wizards are. We usually would just throw the numbers into team chat so that we could keep track of which rooms the wizards were in. This is what worked for my team. We also used Wishender to be able to more quickly identify whether it was a wizard or a Shrieker in the room. If you go into a room, your enlighten buff automatically goes away, and then the only way to get out is to kill whatever is in there. So if you waste your enlighten buff on a shrieker, that's just eating into the time that you would have for DPS. Once DPS phase is started, you have to deal enough damage to reach the notch in our health bar before the Dark Liturgy finishes, or you will wipe. If you have an enlighten buff, you can expunge. It's the same thing when you were building the bridge, but instead of building the bridge, it's just called expunging. It just does a little bit of damage to your ute. Also helps you remove the enlighten buff. As far as what you want to bring for DPS, definitely have somebody with divinity, and we can really get it done with anything. Rockets, LFRs, even Thunderlords if that's your cup of tea. Generally, it should only take 1 to 2 phases to get her down. Once all the people who need the enlighten buff are enlightened, have the last person dunk the chalice into the preservation node at the end of the hallway where you spawned into the encounter. And now onto the bit that you really want to do, is crush Crota. So after your ute, it is the Crota fight. This one is a very straightforward encounter. For the Crota encounter, you're in the same exact room as the ute encounter. First things first, you want to take out the 2 Boomer Knights in each of the towers on the left and right side. Defeating the Boomer Knights spawns in everything else you're going to need for the encounter. So once they're down, 2 Ogres and some Witches will spawn in, along with the Sword Bearer. You can do this encounter a couple of different ways. The easiest way that my team found to do it was for 3 people to become enlightened, grab the swords, 1 person to be enlightened for the Oversoul, and then to lure Crota back to the Crystal Room to do DPS on the same plate that you did DPS on Ute from. Just like in the other encounters, to pick up a sword, which is, by the way, the only way to bring down Crota's shield, you need to be enlightened. To become enlightened, you can't just swap wherever you want like in previous encounters. You're going to need to stand in a beam of light. They only spawn in 1 of 5 places, and it's random every time. Just make sure you're on the lookout and that your team's communicating where you need to go to swap the buff. Once 3 people have swords, and the person who is going to shoot the Oversoul also is enlightened, have the last person preserve the chalice and head back to the Crystal Room. Once you've lured Crota back to the Crystal Room and he's standing on that middle plate, what worked for my team was somebody tractoring Crota, somebody else popping a well, and the 3 sword bearers, guardians, not the knights obviously, to bring down Crota's shield. Once his shield is down, go ahead and crush him. What worked for my team was using either Lament, Falling Guillotine, Throne Cleaver, really any kind of sword, damaging supers like Gathering Storm, Thunder Crash. The new Pyro Gauntlets for the Titans also do wonders, and in some cases even stun locked him, so that he wouldn't slam on the well or any of our guardians. Then you just rinse and repeat until the encounter is done and you've crushed Crota. Once you've defeated Crota, don't forget to grab your loot, hand out your commendations, and celebrate with your fire team. Thanks for watching. Make sure to comment, like, subscribe, and check out the socials. Bye!